Okay, awesome. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining today in our first board meeting. So I'll kick it off. We're going to follow the agenda that was posted a couple days ago on the website and that each of y'all received. And we can go into the background information as we go through this. I'll continue to share the screen, but I'll call the meeting to order. I'm serving, just for official purposes, serving as temporary secretary until we get through that section of the agenda. So just thank everybody for being here today. So I'll do an invocation just to get us started, and then we'll go from there. So we just invite you, Lord, just to be part of this entity. We're very grateful for this opportunity for each of the four of us, and what this will do for the local political subdivisions in Texas. And we just ask for your insights, your help. So we just invite you, Holy Spirit, just go before us and lead the way and be our rear guard. And give us instruction and guidance and wisdom as we go. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So the first order, or number 3 on the agenda, is selection of a secretary. I'll volunteer myself for that unless Matt or Kathy, you want to do it. So
I'm happy for you to take that on.
Yes, I second that. Yes.
Okay. So we've had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed, nay. All right. All the ayes have it. So I'll serve as the secretary, which by the bylaws and constitution, I default unless y'all pick somebody anyhow. So because of the other role that I'll be taking on. Okay, a roll call. I'll do a roll call here. I know we can see each other, but Matt Krause, are you present?
Present.
Kathy Wheat, present.
Present.
Anthony Wilder, present. Art Martinez de Vara, present.
Present.
All right. We got roll call. So all 4 of us are here. And we'll go through our positions in a minute. All right, 5th order of business. I want to give y'all a quick update before we jump into all this and why we've had to continue to defer this meeting until today. So as I think I had informed y'all, we did an interlocal agreement with Odessa on the final week of April, which gave us the 2 members we needed to become an association. We then had to go back to Kingsbury and to Odessa to get them to do some consent in lieu of a meeting. So they both unanimously consented to the following. One is to put me on the board, because it turns out I was not on the board and we thought that I had been added to the board. So I'm now on the board, which is partly why we kept deferring this meeting. The other was to the commencement of business. So both of those members, first members of the association, they've agreed to allow us to open a bank account and to do some other initial business. On the bank account, we did open that. It's officially was opened earlier this week. So we have a bank account now, and we're transitioning funds over there. I have someone helping me with that. To get that done. I think today will probably be done. I've got one more step to do. So we're getting started. Things are rolling on getting the commencement of business. The other thing that had to be done was I went back to Art and I went to Kingsbury 2 Mondays ago. So May the 20th. And we had informed them that the IOLA that they had agreed to last year when they became the first member, it needed some alterations. Because in the IOLA, it mentioned that they could not do IOLAs with me when it was not a member of TGAA, which was not good for them because they were the only member. Therefore, they couldn't do IOLAs with anyone. So we've adjusted that. We fixed that for them. We took that out. Their legal counsel approved it as well. They unanimously consented to that. So we now have an IOLA that both of the entities have done that's identical. Everything in them is the same. So we're good to go. The association is official now. We have our 2 members. I'm on the board. So that's just to catch you up on the last couple of weeks or months. It seems like a year worth of effort in the last couple of weeks, but everything's good to go now. So now we have a board. Any questions about that before I jump into number 6?
No.
Okay.
That's great.
So I think we're all caught up now. All right, number 6. Let's jump in. Let me make sure that I gave you a full update at Kingsbury. Okay. All right. So number 6, I want to set up rules for our meetings, similar to what you've done with the different legislative bodies that y'all been members of in the past. I'd like to set up rules. What I'm proposing is that we just do the Robert's Rules of Order. And what I found was a newly revised third edition version. So that's what I'm proposing. Are y'all okay with that, or do y'all have opposition? Would y'all prefer something else?
No, I think that's the
and
best
for
way to
us,
go.
it's
I
such
think
a
so
small
too.
body right now, you know, over time, I'm envisioning this board being probably 5 members or maybe 7, you know, as we expand out to West Texas, South Texas, which we have. I mean, both of our members are West and South Texas, sort of. I don't know if Mark, you consider San Antonio South, but we do. So it's far south of here, at least 5 hours south. So I think, you know, the plan is to expand later, but right now there's just 3 of us plus Art. So it's, you know, not too hard for us to keep this meeting organized and civil. But I would like to adopt that as the rules of order as we go along. Kathy, any concerns about that? Any objections?
No, I think it's a logical choice.
Okay, Matt or Art, any concerns?
Same.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion just so we can vote on it in a second.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we got a
I'll
motion,
second.
a second. All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt these rules. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, so we'll adopt that as the rules. All right, thanks, guys. I just think it'll help us over time. All right, moving to number 7, the bylaws. So the other, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you this. With the unanimous consent that both of the members did, they also adopted the bylaws and the Constitution. So those were officially adopted on May 20th because Odessa did theirs earlier, and then on May 20th, Kingsbury did it. So May 20th is when those are both adopted. So I included those in the packet. So you'll see those, the bylaws is 15 pages, Constitution is 8. There are no changes. So what y'all have seen in the past was adopted without any changes. I bring this up to ask if was there anything that y'all had concerns about or questions, or that you potentially want to propose for us to consider in a future meeting or even in this meeting? Okay, Matt, anything from you?
No,
Art, did
No.
you have any feedback on those? Are you good with the documents as is?
Yeah, they're good for now.
Okay, what about the Constitution, which is number 8? I had them separated.
Yeah, they're good to go. Again, they're living documents. I think as we start getting active, we may, I think we're almost certainly gonna need to tweak them, but I think they're good to go for now.
Okay, I do want to bring up one item for number 8 then. On number 8, so the way that the 2 current members, they signed up, and I inherited this. I don't want to do this going forward, but both of those entities their commitment was made to them that they don't have to pay the first year dues or fees per Schedule A. So neither one of them have paid for this year. They will start paying in their second year, you know, the anniversary of their membership joining. So, but something has come to light that we receive these fees, these dues yearly from these entities, and for others that join, they'll pay up front, you know, for the first year is the intent. We may have to give that. It just depends on how we get members. Our whole goal is to gain members right now, so we may have to entice a few more to get to that point, but that's not my goal. And anyhow, we have those fees that will come into the entity. The other is potentially professional services. So that's just to cover us. I mean, y'all know right now we have no income, but I've started to be paid from this entity. So we have some expenditures. Plus I've taken 3 trips so far. So you've got airfare and hotels and meals and all that stuff that I've done to date to get all this thing going and launched. So we're going to have expenses, and it's just trying to figure out how do we cover things that go beyond the dues and the fees? And the reason I bring up professional services is because there are going to be entities, they're going to need more hand-holding or guidance from us to adhere or comply to the policy. The policy in effect for their entity type. So Odessa last night, I gave them some work. I put a checklist together for them. It wasn't much effort, but now they're going to start walking through that checklist. And I don't know. I mean, it could be that I'll have to spend hours on the phone with them, or help them to figure out how to put their vendor database together. I don't know. We're just thinking you know what, we're gonna have entities of different sizes that are gonna come in, and some are gonna have large staffs and some are gonna have no staff. Like Kingsbury, all they have is a city clerk or slash secretary, and she was just hired this past year. She is the only person that that is paid by Kingsbury. Everyone else is volunteer. They have volunteer fire department. All of the commissioners are not paid. It's volunteer. Although y'all know that you don't get much when you are an elected official who gets paid. So it doesn't matter. So, but so it's just the idea of professional services to cover expenses as you walk through that 6-month period with them to comply. What do y'all think about that? And
I think it's a good option, especially to include it in the documentation, to give us that option.
yeah. So Matt, what are your thoughts before
Yeah, I say the same thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with enticing people at the outset, but I also don't think there's anything wrong with, charging for services that are taking your time, effort, and all that. So I think it's great on both ends.
Okay. Art, any thoughts on it before I go further?
No, and I think one of our long-term goals needs to be self-sustainability. So we got to get from where we're at now to a point where we operate without donors.
Yeah, definitely.
point.
Definitely goal that I have, and I envision too having a couple of staff, maybe part-time staff at some point who can help with this, who may have experience in doing some of this. Because Kathy and I both were at the city level or the local level, so we both are aware of budgets and the process of dealing with those and the CAFRs and stuff. But then you have other things like RFPs. Well, staff handled RFPs. I didn't do RFPs. We had people do that for us. And some of these places won't have that. So we may have to bring people in to help with some of that over time. And so it's a way to then pay for the needs that we have, to provide the services and to help with the compliance. Okay, so
it's a really great service to be able to offer, especially to smaller towns that don't want to hire additional staff or, it's a great service. It's value add, I think, to members.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a
Agreed.
great way to think about it, Kathy. So what I'm thinking is to potentially add it as a Schedule B to the Constitution. Art, I'll lean on you in terms of guidance, but it was to put some kind of rate schedule in there about, if you need help with the vendor database, it's a certain rate schedule. If you need help with I don't know, the different things on the checklist, there could be different rate schedules, and I'll propose that in a future meeting. I'm not trying to wordsmith this now. It's just something I want us to start thinking about. And then, in a future meeting, we can consider the actual changes in a proposal. Art, is that probably the most appropriate way to go after it? Or is there a better place to put that schedule?
We probably just want to adopt it as a schedule so we don't have to actually amend the Constitution.
Oh, okay.
When we want to amend the schedule, because it's a more arduous process. So you probably just want to have like a reference. So we could add something to the Constitution that says there will be a fee schedule for professional services, and then just authorize the board to create one and amend it as needed.
Okay. Yeah, Art, if you don't mind, we can work on that between now and the next board meeting.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing.
And one more thing you may want to consider. I know when we had that TLGC, we kind of tried something similar a few years ago, and we had a legal hotline, kind of like TML, and the members use that quite a bit, especially when they're like city attorneys and staff were telling them, "Oh, you can't do that." They would call us up, and we would give them advice on how to do things, conservatively or outside the box, or alternative ways of doing it, or examples. Well, Kingsbury did it this way, and that type of thing. So kind of like a help desk line. We didn't charge at the time, but that was probably the most utilized function of that group, because a lot of folks are just stuck with poor advice, and they figure there's got to be a better way to do it or another way, and they wanted to reach out and ask for that. So.
Okay, and we have a way. I'll have to look at here. Let me pull the site up. Yeah, there's a contact us. So we don't. Okay, yeah. So we need a number. We have, just so you're aware, in case you aren't, there's a way to submit violations, and we have a process for that. And emails will go out And of course, our members are still in compliance period, so there are no potential violations right now. But yeah, that's a good call out, Art. We probably should have something in here for a phone number, maybe just my cell number for now, for them to call. And they do, both the cities are contacting me, even yesterday they did, about like, hey, we're trying to comply with this, give us some direction. But yeah, that's a good call out to put here. Since I'm talking about contact us, the goal is also to establish a permanent address for the entity. Right now, we're using an address that's temporary in Carrollton. It is a dwelling, but we intend to have a more permanent, like a WeWork or something like that. So that'll eventually be on here. So it's a good call out, Art. All right, well, Art, I'll work with you.
We do. I know we set up a PO box with an Austin zip code, which I think we've checked once in a year and a half. But that's out there. If I don't know. Early on, people thought we should be in Austin as a statewide organization or whatever. So that's available. I think it's still anyway, but it's hard to check. So
okay, yeah, I'll have to. Yes, I'll remember that. Yeah, I was told there was a PO box. I didn't. Again, something I'm inheriting, so I'll have to figure out that as well. And none of us are in Austin, so that may have to change. But I understand it's the center of the state. So, okay. Anything else about item number 8 before we move on? Okay. And there's no action to be taken, so I'm going to take a vote. Okay. Number 9. Since this is our first meeting, we need to set up officers for the board. So there's the chairman. We'll have to take action on that today. Executive director, general counsel, and there's 2 others that are mentioned. Excuse me. But neither of these require us. We're not required to do a vice president or secretary treasurer. It defaults to the executive director. By the way, the second one does. So I'll start. Let's start with the chairman. I'd like to hand them all separately just so we can do a vote on each. Chairman of the board, I'll volunteer to do it unless Matt, you or Kathy want to do it. I'm open to whatever y'all want to do. But I understand that y'all both, I get to do this full time now and y'all don't. So I recognize that. So what are y'all's thoughts on chairman? What would y'all like to do?
I think you're the one that's going to be the most knowledgeable at this point. So I think it makes the most sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Art, any thoughts on that before we do a motion and vote?
no, that sounds great.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion in a second for chairman.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. A second
I'll
on.
second. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion in a second that to name Anthony Wilder as the chairman of the board. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. So I'll be chairman. Executive director, moving on to that one. Same thing. That they named me the executive director, and then I informed them like, well, you can't. The board has to do that. So I'm willing to do that. But if one of you wants to take this over, I'm more than happy.
No, I move for you to be executive director.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's no conflict, Art, with him being executive director and chairman of the board. I guess that's just kind of like being CEO and chairman of the board. And
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Right.
Okay, perfect. Then yeah, I'm great with that.
Art, were you going to say anything else before we?
No, just you may have to recuse yourself, like on your own salary, that kind of stuff. But other than those direct conflicts, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, yeah, and I've thought about that. And we'll still have a 2/3. So if I recuse myself, we'll still have 2 of 3. So that we'll still be able to take action, correct, on things? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'll be the one good thing is the executive director within that role. I can talk with entities and talk with individuals and leading up to board meetings, so we don't have walking quorums. So that would be very helpful. And then within these meetings, I can disclose all that to y'all, so we can avoid, because if 2 of us talk, that's a walking quorum. So we'll have to avoid that at all times, and I think this helps with that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion in a second for executive director.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, and I second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to name Anthony Wilder as executive director. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. All right, moving on to general counsel. I am proposing that Art be the general counsel for this group. He's been instrumental in getting this thing going for the last 2 years, and definitely the last 2 months. I've bugged him very frequently. So, and his knowledge from TLGC and other things we did 10 years ago, greatly appreciated. So I'll make a motion that Art be named the general counsel for TGAA board. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second that Art is named as the general counsel for TGAA Board of Directors. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. So congrats, Art. You get to stay with us forever.
Yeah. And condolences. Yeah, both. Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate you, Art.
Thank you.
So the next one is vice president. Like I said, it's not required, but it is one that can potentially have an appointment. Would y'all like to do a vice president for the board? And it's called vice president. I think vice chairman makes more sense, but it's just called vice president in the docs. So I'll go with that. Would y'all like to do one?
I would recommend one in case for
Yeah.
some reason Anthony's unavailable. We have someone who can still operate the organization.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you're expanding to 5 or 7, as you were talking about earlier, it might be nice to already have that in there. So it's just a continuation, not something new at that point.
Okay. So Matt and Kathy, I'll need a volunteer for that role, and then we'll take a motion on it. But I'm just curious which one of you would be willing to step in on that role if necessary.
I'm fine doing it. I feel like Matt's about to have a lot more on his plate. So, but either way, Matt, if you would like to do it, I am more than happy to support you in
No,
that effort, so.
I'm happy to make the motion. You do a great job, and that sounds great. So yeah, I'd make the motion for Kathy Weed to be the vice president.
Okay, and I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second to name Kathy Weed as the vice president for TGAA Board of Directors. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, that does have it. Good. Well, congrats, Kathy. Thank you for doing that. All right, and secretary treasurer. The secretary treasurer defaults to the executive director. We can change that if you want. Art, do you have any guidance here on what you think we should do, or should we just leave it for the default?
Yeah, I would say in our current structure, we should leave it. Just you're going to end up doing it anyway. So, but we can reconsider it once the board expands.
Yeah, I figured that's the case, but I'm more than happy if one of y'all wants to do it. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, for now, we don't have to take action because by default I'm already unless y'all want to. So, okay, I see the head nod. So I think we'll leave it as is, which is defaulting for me. So that means I'll permanently be the secretary for these meetings, and of course I'll be the treasurer. I'm working on getting the bank account set up anyhow. So by default, I'm already playing that role. Okay. Any other thoughts on these roles before we move forward? We've covered that agenda. All right, cool. All right, number 10. We per the Constitution, we have to set up an annual meeting for the board, a date and time and place. For the place, my proposal is that we do this online. We're not going to gain 50 members over the next couple months, and I'd like to do an annual meeting later this year. This does not mean that we can't meet again, let's say a month from now, which I'm hoping we do, because we do need to deal with this professional services idea. And there's one other that we'll get to in a minute. But what I'm proposing for the annual meeting, that it be sometime in Q4 of this year. That gives me the summer and September to try and get more members on board. And the turnaround time, I think it's going to take some time. As I mentioned in an agenda I'm coming up, I think it's about 90 to 120 days to get a member from initial discussions to action at a meeting, whether it be a commissioner's court or city council or school board meeting. So my ask is that we consider having this meeting in Q4 of this year. Any thoughts about this, or what you would like to do?
It sounds appropriate to me. I mean, I think your proposal is good.
Okay.
Agreed.
Art, what would you prefer? Do you want us to do it sooner rather than later? I'm thinking like November and Q4, somewhere in that range. That way it avoids the Christmas time where we're all going to have horrible scheduling conflicts. and Thanksgiving, but it gets us past October. So any thoughts, Art, or do you feel like we need to be sooner or later in the year?
No, I mean, I think, because we only have two members, we're basically able to give them full attention. I think once we have more members, there's going to be more value to to a member meeting once there's 5, 6, 7 members, and then people can start um, networking with one another. So I mean, I think later the better, to be honest. So, or maybe have a few of these regional conferences first, and then launch that into the into the annual. So my opinion, I think November seems kind of soon, but if that's what you want, I mean.
Well, we can do it later. I mean,
Okay.
the requirement, I think it's within the first 12 months. Is that correct?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could do it later if you want to push it
Right.
to Q1 or Q2 of next year. It'd have to be prior to this, prior to May 20th
Right.
of
Yeah.
next year. We could do that if you want to set it up later in the year.
Again, just my opinion, but that makes more sense to me. And that's kind of the conference season anyway. There's not a lot in the fall, so.
Okay. Now,
Now we have to be mindful. And next, legislative session it's going on next spring too. So, but anyway.
now, for clarity's sake, this is just the board of directors meeting, the annual meeting that we have to
Oh.
establish. There is another one. It's another agenda item, but will be the members meeting. Which,
Okay.
just so there's
Well,
no
then
confusion.
transfer everything I said to the annual meeting of members. That's what I was referring to,
Okay.
not the
Okay.
board.
Okay.
November for the board seems fine to me. Yeah.
Okay. Kathy and Matt, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
fine. Whatever you recommend.
I'll set up. I've set up a Zoom scheduler. It's kind of like Calendly, if y'all are familiar with that approach. So I'll send out an invitation to see, to try and get some, consensus on a date and time in November. So I'll send that out after this call and put something out there to see what we can land on in the first couple of weeks of November, given this. Okay. Any other thoughts about this?
No, that sounds good.
All right, so what we'll do is in Zoom scheduler, we'll get something set up, and then we can take action on it in the next meeting. We'll put, this is the date and time. Okay. All right, moving on. Number 11, and there's one about the members meeting. It's further down on the agenda. All right, number 11. I wanted to give you all an update, which I think I may have already. So in the unanimous consent in lieu of meeting that both of the members provided to us, these are the things that they've given us the ability to do. So I just want to put these into the meeting so it's recorded. The bank account, which I've mentioned, we've started the work on that. I think today we'll be finished with the bank account. Just the general commencement of business, anything we need to do, such as, creating another permanent address or changing the PO box, whatever, things like that, I'll have approval to do now.
Can you zoom in on this document because my eyes are failing me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell me when, is that good or
Do one more, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right. So here, these are the items. So you have the bank account. I mentioned the commencement of business and things that go with that. Any licensing or permitting that's necessary. None yet, but things may come up. Fiscal year, just to note, the fiscal year is the calendar year. So it'll be January 1 to December 31. So this was taken care of when the two members agreed. So there's not any action here. But Art, is there anything that the board needs to provide approval on? Or because the members, I feel like they gave us everything we needed. Was there anything that we needed from the board? Okay.
I don't believe no.
Okay. So Matt or Kathy, any questions about the commencement of business or what was approved? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's good.
All right, moving on. Okay, number 12. This item is the one for the TGA member meeting. So Art, I think this is what you were thinking about when a few minutes. So this meeting, I'm proposing to do it in Q4 as well. As I mentioned, I feel like the timeline of going from a prospect to a member is 90 to 120 days. Although it did take longer with Odessa. But that was unique because I wasn't on board yet and there wasn't anybody full-time engaging with them. So it probably could have been quicker. And so this is a member meeting, and I'm proposing for the first year that it be online as well, because let's say we get 5 or 6 more in the next couple months. I just don't think that's enough to justify, renting a ballroom at a hotel and having everybody fly in or drive or anything like that at this point in time. I think over time it'd be very beneficial. I'd love for us all to be in a room for 2 or 3 days and, have a conference or convention and spell out some other, things that we can help with and have, best case, best budgeting practices meetings or, other training sessions. But for this initial one going forward, I'm proposing that. As Art mentioned, we do have a legislative session that starts in January. And so that we're really, that will tie all of us up because we're all engaged in that in some form or capacity, as well as the members, because they will get very focused on that and not other things. So I'm proposing to do it in Q4 just to avoid those, plus give me time to try and boost the membership count a little bit. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, and this is something that's subject to change, right? Every year you just have to have one every calendar year. Is that right?
Yeah. Art, I'm saying yes, but Art, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, one per calendar year.
Yeah. And we can do more. This doesn't prevent us from having these regional get-togethers that we're thinking about for prospecting purposes, such as, Ector County or, in Midland County to get a group of those entities together to help to share with them, hey, here's what we're doing. Odessa's already done it. That'll be something different, Matt. This is just something that's prescribed in the Constitution that we have to set up each year.
Yep. I think it's great.
Okay.
I think especially if it's a video conference meeting, the timing is much easier because, like you said, people don't have to travel, and we are a small group at this time. So I think we just pick a date, put a flag in the sand, and start there.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll bring in the next meeting. I'll bring back a proposal of a date and time, and then we can just vote on that. Unless y'all have one already. I don't have one in mind. I just wanted it to be after October 1. Just give me some time. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I'll come back because as I mentioned a few times, we'll probably need another board meeting in a couple of weeks because we want to, address the professional services and one other. So we'll come back with those as proposals too on dates and times for that. Okay. So we won't take any action on that today. All right. Number 13. I wanted to talk to you about the transparency and ethics policy. So when the members agree to join, they sign an interlocal agreement. In that interlocal agreement, they agree to abide by the Constitution and the bylaws of the entity. They also agree to comply with the policy that's related to their entity type. So we have a policy for cities, another one for counties, another one for school districts. We don't have one for special purpose districts yet, but I think we'll probably have to create one as that becomes a thing or a need. But as we've looked into this, there is a section which I'll show you, and I can zoom in, Kathy, because it gets kind of small here. So let me zoom in on this. This is what the policy currently looks like. Is that big enough, Kathy? Can you see?
Thank you.
Right. So right here in section 1, in the policy, it's broken up into 3 pieces. Section 1 is transparency and disclosure. Section 2 is ethics, and section 3 is definitions of key terms. So what I'm talking about here is section 1, part 2, which is the financial transparency disclosures. Within this, we're currently asking our members to comply with this part A, which only talks about the comprehensive financial report, to put that on the website if they have not already. What we would like to do is expand this A. So everything else will stay the same. You'll have the audits will stay as is, the vendors, blah, blah, blah. All of that will stay the same. What we're proposing is this for A. So it would still be the same top line that we're asking them to put their comprehensive financial reports. And this is the city version of the policy. So you'll see it mentioned city here in a couple places. But we've spelled out further what we specifically want. So we have a consolidated section for statements, and in a government fund section, proprietary fund section, fiduciary fund section, and the last is notes, to ask them to put, the financial notes out there. What we did yesterday is we considered this proposed changes against 3 cities. We're about to start talking with Carrollton and Louisville about becoming members of the entity, and also thought about Colleyville, because Kathy, I know you're familiar with Colleyville, plus it's a smaller, it's about 25,000, whereas Carrollton and Louisville are about the same size as Odessa. So it's thinking about, different sizes and what they're doing now. So we did a review yesterday of those 3 cities, Carrollton, Louisville, and Colleyville. All 3 of those cities already comply with these proposals, except for one part, this. So right here, we are asking for a statement of cash flows. Everything else in here, we believe they already comply with. So let me make, and you'll see here also it says statement of cash flow. So what they are not providing is the statement of cash flows. It's a little bit different disclosure of the data. And we feel like it's something that should be done. The goal of TGAA is to enhance and improve the transparency standards and the ethical standards, but it's also to provide, I feel like it's to provide guidance, like, hey, should be looking at cash flow. This just doing this, these comprehensive statements once a year isn't helping, and they probably do. You've got a CFO type person, like an assistant city manager, or an assistant or vice superintendent for school district, things like that, who are charged with this, and they're basically like the CFOs of these entities. But it's to call it out, to have this disclosure so that the public can see it. As I'll say over and over again, the more light we shed on this, the better it is for everybody. The more transparent it is, the better it will be. So thoughts on that from the group?
So I have a question. I'm not an accountant. I mean, I definitely am familiar with these documents from the city perspective, but feel like I've definitely seen cash statements related to Colleyville, but I don't know if that's a standard accounting document. So it's a question, because I don't know what is the onus that we're putting on a small accounting department or a single CFO or somebody like that to produce this statement. Is it straightforward? Is it complex? I don't have the answer to that. I don't have an understanding.
And we've gone back and forth on that, Kathy. I've had discussions with peers who are more familiar with this than we are. And we've looked at the city of Dallas, because we've been trying to develop a statement of cash flow for Dallas, since we're, in the area. It's a big city. Some of my peers live there that we've talked to about this. So I'll try to answer the question as best I can. So GAAP, so government generally accounting practices, they do not require a statement of cash flows. GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, which these are all subject to, they don't require it either. And the GFOA, we're not aware, and that's the Government Finance Officers Association. Sorry, a lot of acronyms. Yeah. They don't require it as well. So we are aware that this would be something that would be a step above what they are being asked to do. Also, I'll go backwards for a second, a couple pages. Here, this is the transparency star for traditional finances. The comptroller, y'all probably know this, they have 6 transparency stars now. Mm-hmm. One of them, which is the one that's been in place for a long time, Susan Combs kind of started this, and then Glenn Hager has adopted it and carried it forward and made it more robust. There's one called traditional finances. In that one, it does not require it either. So the answer, Kathy, is this would be an extra ask of an accounting department of a city or some government local political subdivision.
So my concern is not related to transparency, because I think that it could be very valuable from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But my concern is, if this is not something that is traditionally produced, how difficult is that going to be? And I mean, it sounds like you're addressing those same questions and concerns, but is that something we can realistically expect?
And that was the push
to take on right now. I don't know.
It's the pushback I gave yesterday to the peers as we were trying to develop this idea, is what does it take? here's what we know from Dallas, but Dallas is different. Dallas has a lot of enterprise funds, fiduciary fund. There's a lot going on. Billions of dollars, in play on all of this too. So a lot of commas you have to focus on. But the auditing firm that for the city of Dallas, they told us that they feel like it would take 10 days to develop this cash flow for them, which is that's a big ask.
That's a big ask.
But it's a lot more difficult entity to do it on. I couldn't say for Colleyville. I mean, Colleyville's it's a fraction of the size, fraction of the numbers involved in data. So I don't know if that means that it's 2 days for Colleyville versus 10 for Dallas. But those are seasoned individuals who are very aware of the data as well. that are saying it would take 10 days. I think we feel like it's a miss. That it's probably something that should be required. We do have an outstanding question to the GFOA. The question is this: why are you not asking these government entities to do a statement of cash flow? The answer to that could potentially, shed some light on it. Like maybe there's a really good reason that we don't know of, but I was the chairman of the Finance Audit Committee for a city of 130,000 people, and I don't know the answer to it, and I don't know why we didn't do it. So I'm left to continue to push, for something like this. But I don't want to take action on it today. The reason I put this on the agenda is I would like us to think about it as a group, and and it gives me more time, because I'd like the GFOA to respond to us and to see, what is it a valid reason why we aren't requiring this, and why GAP's not requiring it, why GASB's not requiring it. So I'll pause there. Any other thoughts?
I would definitely like a much better understanding of kind of what that report entails. Like you said, 10 days for Dallas, but what GFOA thinks. One of our assistant city managers has served as president of GFOA, and she would have a strong opinion, I'm sure, one way or the other. I don't know what it would be, but I just, not coming from an accounting background, would like to have a much stronger understanding of what we're requiring. But I also want to make sure that our requirements to all of these entities are not so difficult that people can't join. I don't want to dissuade people from joining because our bar is so high. We want to encourage these great standards in cities, but not if it makes their lives so difficult they can't participate. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm open to adding something to it though, because that's why you have TGAA. We're just going to go along with what everybody else has. There's not much of a value add or a reason, but my guess is they may have these cash flow statements somewhere on their books or in some kind of report. As you were saying, Anthony, that it might, not be that hard to produce or figure out how to get there. But I think the vice president made a good point. We don't want to make it a barrier to getting more members just by having this one thing on there. But if there's a good reason to put it on there, and that can be something extra, more transparent, more accountability that we bring to the taxpayers of those entities, I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely. Okay. I totally agree with you.
Okay, here's my thoughts I don't want to take action on it today because I do want us to think about it, but we'll wait. We're hoping the GFOA responds soon. Kathy, would you be willing to connect me with that person? Because
absolutely. Yeah.
I've talked to another past president of GFOA, but unfortunately at this time he's tied up and he can't give us as much help as I was hoping. So maybe she could, spend more time with us on that. So if you could connect me with that individual, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Talk with them over the next couple of weeks before we meet again. Okay. Art, anything you wanted to mention on here?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I agree. I think we need to have standards above these other organizations. So I generally be in favor, but I also agree that if they're so onerous that it prohibits membership, so some magical place in between.
Right. Right.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I'll continue to, I guess, say we'll wait for the GFOA response. Kathy, if you can connect me with that person, that'll help. It's one more person to talk to about this. And And then we can come back. But just to stress that we believe that these three entities that we looked at and compared against are achieving everything else already. So they're already in compliance, which was great to hear yesterday. Because I was concerned when I first saw the list. I'm like, that's a lot of stuff, guys. but it turns out they're doing it. So, all right. So we won't take any action on that item. Moving to 14. This one is just for discussion. So there's no action to take. As we get the bank account started, we're going to have some funds provided into the bank account. And then over time, we'll get dues and fees and professional services as we work through that. But I would like to start a budget so I can present that to y'all. It's going to be pretty minimal for now. We want to do a mailer to one of the things we've committed. So with this group inherited is we committed to do a mailer for Kingsbury and Odessa as the first two members to launch this association. So we're going to do a mailer in both of those cities. Odessa is about 120,000 people. I don't know how many rooftops that is, maybe half. I'll just assume every home has two, so 60,000 rooftops. And then Kingsbury is very small, less than 500 rooftops. So we have that mailer that we've committed to do. So you have some expenses there. I do want to do booths at certain conferences over the course of this year. And just things of that nature. Plus we'll have travel and other expenses that I've already incurred some of that we've received funding for through as we were getting this going through the foundation. So something just to bring to light so we can get this going. And in the fiscal year, I'll match it to the calendar year. So it'll be based on between now and December 31st, what a budget would look like. So any thoughts on that? Any concerns or questions?
No, I think we should have a budget.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just
ironic if we didn't,
exactly
considering the association that we are in charge of. So
right.
Just it's one more thing to get done as we commence this entity. Yeah, and we have Art. I don't know if you were asked about this yesterday, but we're trying to figure out how the funding will work with TGAA and the foundation that we've been using to get to this point. So I don't know if they reached out to you or to the other council that was helping us, but we're trying to get that all set up too, which will then allow us to set this budget up and know which account to use. So I'll be working through that. So in a future meeting, I'll bring that back to the group. Are there any things that y'all would like to be considered in the budget through the end of this calendar year or fiscal year?
No, not out of I mean, everything you said, I think is probably good, covers it, right? Travel is the only thing that I didn't see kind of on these little bullet points that you might want to include. But other than that, I think you've hit it along with your salary or whatever that is. But I think it looks good.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. And that's the outstanding question is the salary, because they had another entity had been paying because we don't have dues or fees yet. So we'll figure that out and go from there. Okay. So something I'll bring back. Art, anything on the budget or any questions or anything we need to consider?
No, just legal fees as always. A line item.
Okay. Yes. Legal fees, salary, travel, things of that nature. All right.
Yeah.
And Art, question for you. The invoices that are outstanding, are they still outstanding?
I believe so. I believe so. Still one,
Okay.
I think.
All right. So that we have to figure out too is how do we pay those through the foundation or through this association? I think it's another question. All right. So like I said, a few more things to deal with as we commence this association, a few more questions to get answered. All right. Anything else on item 14? All right. 15. Okay. So I put this in here just in case y'all had anything else you wanted to talk about. So it's just an open forum. Any items that aren't listed on the agenda, that y'all would like to talk about. We can't take action on them, but if y'all like to discuss. So Kathy, anything you have for the open forum?
No, I don't.
Okay. Matt, anything from you?
No, this has been pretty comprehensive and
All right.
thorough, I think, for the first board meeting. So well done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Art, anything?
No,
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, well, that's the end then. All right. So just to wrap up a couple things. So we'll come back. I'll would like to have another board meeting, probably in the next 30 days. That then gives us something to work towards. So I've got some things to work on in regards to professional services and in regards to section 1.2A of the Constitution. I'm sorry, of the policy. You know, so those are things we'll have to come back on, and then meetings, the annual meeting for us as a board and an annual meeting for the members. So I'll send some invites out on the annual meeting for the board. And if y'all could, it's called Zoom Scheduler is what I'm using, but it's like Calendly. So I'll be sending those out to you so we can figure it out and then set up a date and time and come back and adopt that in the next meeting. All right. Anything that I've left off? Awesome.
I don't think so.
Thanks everybody for doing this. I appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to growing this association, being the rubber stamp for transparency and ethics in Texas.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today.
Right.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
All right.
Great job.
All right. See y'all.
Bye.